This is the last session, so thank you for waiting for the long time. So to begin with, can each of you introduce yourself like briefly, like beginning from Ting?
Hi, my name is Ting. I'm a managing partner at TRIVE. So we invest at the seed stage in Southeast Asian startups, focusing on impact, covering health and wealth.
Okay, and Carrie?
Nice to meet everyone. My name is Carrie Chen, co-founder and CEO of Avant. We are Asia's first cultivated fish company. I may explain a little bit about what is cultivated meat in a moment, but we produce fish meat that we can make in product without the need to catch or slaughter fish using bioprocesses.
Okay, Irwan?
My name is Irwan, so I'm the CEO of Swap Energy. So we build battery swapping networks for electric motorcycles in Indonesia.
Okay, and my moderator, this is James, CEO of beSUCCESS Media Group. Okay, so let's ask question beginning from Carrie. Can you let us know about the environment benefits and challenges of producing cell-based meats in Southeast Asian market compared to the traditional meat productions?
Yeah, so when we start, the cultivated meat technology is already a kind of proven technology concept in the West. But when we see Asia is a very big market, and seafood is actually one of the major kind of staple food in our cuisine. So if we look at the number, between 60 to 70% of seafood produced globally is actually consumed in Asia. Now there's one side of the demand side. However, on the supply side, we know that traditionally we are catching fish from the ocean. So overfishing is actually a very major problem. 90% of marine ecosystem already exploited. And given that the huge demand in Asia, that's why we see that if we can find a way to produce fish that we do not need to continue with the overfishing, as well as offering a more efficient way of producing meat, as well as kind of cleaner because we produce everything inside a very sterilized environment. So the consumer will also like, because seafood we're concerned about heavy metal and microplastic, which we won't have with this technology. So we see there's a lot of matching point. So I think that this is what we are trying to achieve, and in particular for the Southeast Asian market.
Okay, very like informative. And Iran, how does your Swap Energy encourage like sustainable consumption and drive like a behavior change among like consumers in Southeast Asia market?
Okay, as for today, we are still focusing in Indonesia. So let's get back to Indonesia market for two-wheelers.
Sure.
To understand the whole market, Indonesia has 130 million units of ICE motorcycles.
Wow,
so it's
huge.
A huge pollution. So
Yeah.
so you wanna let's get back to the days before Swap Energy is there. So the question is, were people starting to use electric motorcycles? Nope. Okay, yeah, there was very little numbers, and I would call them electric bikes instead of electric motorcycles. So they do home charging. So it's very inconvenient. So what the challenges for the growth of the adoption of the electric motorcycles in Indonesia was the range anxiety that's caused by the limited size of the batteries. So in order for these users, okay, if you want users to replace their ICE motorcycles, so it has to be as convenient as the ICE motorcycle, and also benefit in terms of cost reduction. So we created these battery swapping networks for electric motorcycles, so that they can actually they have access to the energy as easily. I would say it's easier. It's much simpler compared to the ICE motorcycle, because you have to queue for the gasoline in Indonesia. So we are much shorter, just a few seconds. So we also in Swap Energy we have a sister company called Smooth. We have a few thousand units running on the street. We are partnering with Grab, one of the biggest ride-hailing in Southeast Asia. Everybody's happy, we are happy, they're happy. So this is how we want to drive to convert all these captive market. I mean, with such a huge population of ICE motorcycle, 130 million, if we can only convert like 20% of it, there will be a great achievement. So much less carbon dioxide will be released into the air. So so now we have a lot of people very keen to convert their ICE motorcycle into electric motorcycle with our battery swapping system.
Yeah, thank you for that. I can see the like huge future, like huge growth in the future, right? Yeah. And let's ask Tim. Can you provide like examples of innovative Southeast Asia startups in the sustainability sector that TRIVE Ventures has supported or invested as a cases, or just let us know about the cases?
Yeah, so under the umbrella of sustainability, we look at impact. So very
impact,
outcomes,
yes.
very outcomes driven. So I can give you like briefly 3 examples. The first company we have is AgriMax. It's an agri-biotech company. It increases crop yields anywhere from 20 to 60%. So that covers the agri part of what we're looking at in terms of food security. Then another company that happens to be here at the conference, HEG, they're actually a food reformulation company under How Foods that removed lower GI, removed sodium, removed fat, keeping taste and texture the same. So recently they spun out a plant-based powder eggless egg called HEG, where it's zero cholesterol and it's better for health. So the idea here is the more you sell, the more money you make. The more you sell, the more impact you create. Then lastly, the example I give you is a coding school that we invested in Vietnam.
Coding school, right?
Yeah, coding education school. And the outcomes from that are students or the alumni now have amazing global careers. So the best example is one student that graduated and is a Vietnamese guy, is now working at Facebook US, pulling in $250,000 a year in salary. And it's about opening of opportunities and like just leveling the global playing field for talent. So these are some of the areas of impact that we're very concerned with, that we like. The idea behind it is if I look after you, you can look after your family, you have good access to food, access to healthcare, then we'll talk about the environment and all the things around it.
Got it. And Carrie, what opportunities do you see collaborations between the alternative protein industry and other sectors to promote like sustainability?
Yeah, many different area. For example, maybe I break it down so that it's a little bit more easy to understand.
Yep, please make it more
Imagine
easy.
like how we make meat, right? Nowadays is that, okay, I have an animal farm. Maybe I keeping chicken or pig or cow. So the supply chain goes like this. I will have to grow some crops. So that is the food for the animal. And then I feed to the animal. The animal grow bigger. And then after some number of months, then I can take them to slaughter and then I can get the meat. Now our making process is actually we do not need to keep the animal in the picture. We basically convert all of the natural resources. By that I mean materials such as glucose, minerals, amino acid, vitamins, etc. that is essential for any animal, including human beings, to stay healthy and actually grow properly. So we basically do not need to feed the animal, but we feed it directly to the cells. So the cells, when our technology is actually adapt the cell from the animal to living outside of animal bodies as if they are still living inside, but then they will still need to consume those ingredients and material and nutrients. So with doing that, we'll be able to produce a product. Now, how that will actually change the supply chain is that imagine that we do not need a very big piece of land to keep our chicken or pig or cows, and we do not need to, the crop will not need to feed them. So what we need is still some plant-based raw material, but then they need to be in pure powdery form that we can feed directly to the cells. So coming back to the question partnership, I think we do see the agriculture industry, we're talking about agriculture industry 4.0, where we're actually to a certain way digitizing the production of meat. It also means that the supply chain, including the raw material, will be quite different. So we look forward to actually partnering with existing raw material, commodity, big corporation or regional players who actually would help us to actually evolve the infrastructure, because we also need to develop our supply chain to be a very efficient and cost-effective way. so that our downstream process and the production and product would also be very cost effective. Yeah.
It's very good. So you are not replacing them, like you are like helping them, right, to getting into like another industry, right?
Correct. That will be also a new opportunity for the existing portfolio of product, for example.
Very good, very good. And Irwan, how has the sharing economy evolved in Indonesia and Southeast Asia, if you can share it? And what factors have contributed to its growth in this region? Because sharing economy has been like a big keyword in recent like 5 or 7 years. So please let us know about like a recent trend or some kind of like evolvement recently.
Okay, let's talk about 10 years ago. 10 years ago, when we talk about sharing economy, I think it's mostly done by a corporate to customer. So something like maybe taxi, okay, public transports, right? But ever since, we have to know that ever since there's smartphones, a lot of things change. So sharing economy, like there are two, I would say a few very big companies in Southeast Asia, Grab, Gojek. So they're sharing is ride hailings, and it's the most common one in Southeast Asia. And then we have co-working space. There are also platforms that we can actually rent some equipments that we rarely use, maybe once a year. So I think this is because of these smartphones that made all this possible actually. And the reason why this is very interesting to riders because Southeast Asia, Indonesia, so it's convenience, and you don't have to buy whatever you need actually. Well, like they say, you don't have to buy a car. You can always take a Grab car, Go car. It's much cheap. I mean, it doesn't have to be cheaper, right? But it's convenience. You don't have to pay such a big amount of money upfront. So this, and then a lot of startup coming in. They are doing a co-working space. So it's much cheaper and faster to initiate a company. These are the benefits that is created by this ecosystem. It would not be possible without these technologies. So it's very technology driven.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And Tim, how do you evaluate the long-term sustainability potential of companies when making when making investment decisions? Or you don't care that area and then see the founders or maybe revenues, I don't know what it is, but how you consider that sustainability factors when doing an investment?
Right. So in our startup evaluation framework, the standard stuff like looking at product market fit, looking at market sizing, go-to-market strategy, things like that. So in that framework, we actually have one entire section that's dedicated to the evaluation of impact. And my team hates it, but when you actually properly do it, that section on impact is as long as the business evaluation, but it's hidden as one section. So we leverage this framework called the Impact Management Project Framework, the IMPF, and that gives us a very holistic view of the level of impact that startups are creating. So that covers stakeholders, that covers like how much impact, how long, what's the cost, what happens if we don't do this, will the impact still exist? And that categorizes it at the end into one of three. So it's either A for avoids harm, B benefits stakeholders, or C contributes to solutions. Given that almost all our investments are into technology companies, I'd say easily 50% to 80% of our startups fall into the contributes to solutions category because they're creating new solutions. So that forms a very integral part of our startup evaluation framework, which just makes it a lot more difficult to make investments because startups have to, number one, be viable as a technology startup, which means I'm still looking for that high growth returns chart, and at the same time naturally create that impact outcomes that we're going for. So the whole idea being, if you sell, the more you make, the more you sell, the more impact you create, then my job as your early commercialization investor is to focus on revenue and revenue growth, because that drives everything.
Okay, makes sense, yes. And let's move on to Carrie. How does Avant Meats address the challenges of scalability and affordability for cell-based meats in maybe Southeast Asia or your industry? Because this is really important, like a factor, right?
Yeah, James, thank you. It's a very good two key points, which are the major challenges for our industry: affordability and scalability. So I again break it down so that's easier to understand. So why affordability is one of the challenge. Behind the underlying science of cultivated meat is actually borrowing from pharmaceutical and medical application. So previously, the doctor may be using tissue culturing and tissue engineering to treat patients. They can print cornea, they can print the skin, and things like that. So the food application is actually coming from that underlying technology. So when we start the R&D and start our work, not more than 10 years ago, the whole industry is still very young. We don't have any choices, but actually go to the same equipment supplier, the same raw material supplier. And you know what? These suppliers, because they are serving pharmaceutical company, they actually have a very big margin. They're very used to gross margin 40 to 50%. So for us, they will not differentiate. They sell us the same thing. So that makes the thing very expensive. Now, one of the ingredients in the growing cell is called fetal bovine serum, which is the blood serum of young calf. So that is not sustainable as well as very expensive. So in our company, we already, in 2020, already removed serum from our formulation of the feed to the cells. So it is more sustainable as well as drastically reduce the cost by close to 90%. But to give everyone a ballpark, before any R&D, if I use everything medical grade to produce a kilogram of the what we call the cell mass, cultivated cell, it can easily cost few thousand $US per kilogram. Now, cutting out 90% will still be 100, 200-ish, so that we still have the very last mile of cost reduction to do. So that's how our own small portfolio of patent pending approach, how we can actually formula our the cell nutrient feed, other way to culture our cell more efficiently that can reduce the cost of goods sold later on. So we target at looking at 2026, around that time, where our production costs will be very close to premium grade of conventional fish fillet in the market. Before that, we will go to market with a bit more premium product to begin with. For information, the same cell working on different thing, but different product can sell different price. The production cost will be very similar. So we started off to selling something like fish maw. I don't know whether you are familiar with fish maw. It's also quite expensive as a conventional version, as well as use our technology to produce marine peptide that can be used in skincare product. So those are more premium products. So we can actually go to market earlier. The scalability question is actually like this. A lot of the company in this space, we already done a lot of the cost reduction R&D. We are scaling up. At the same time, we are building factories. So every other month, we read news that, okay, company this, company that, already building the pilot plant. So I think because of anything involving a physical property fitting out, it does take time to get government approval and things like that. So I think the scalability, indeed, we need to be patient, but we will actually be seeing more and more companies have already the capacity to produce commercially in the next 2 to 3 years, including ourselves, which we are building our pilot facility in Singapore.
Very good. Can you just briefly share about, just curious about your R&D team, because your R&D team should be really huge, right?
Yes, we do have primarily like 60, 70% of our headcount are either PhD or bioprocess experience people from pharmaceutical space. And we have now across Singapore and Hong Kong about 22 employees.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
Have you thought about doing like replacements for, say, shark fin or abalone or what's that, Haishen, like sea cucumbers?
Yes, the 4 treasures of the sea, right? Yeah, indeed. So we are first tackling fish maw. Indeed, we do have some potential leads for 1 and 2 of the other product that you just mentioned. But at the moment, still more, we will announce when it is ready.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
very good. Looking forward to that. And Irwan, in what ways does Swap Energy plan to expand its offerings, or a market reach to further promote the circular economy and waste reduction in the region?
Okay. So to understand the whole swap energy business, so it's a battery swapping. So we are selling energy, basically to the riders. Okay, and then a lot of questions like what happened when at the end of the life of the batteries, right? So it goes back. We're talking about recycling, a lot of things. So because of swap energy, that we are operating all the batteries under one company. So these assets are actually centralized. So it's it's so much easier for us compared to let's say all the riders, they buy their bikes and then with the batteries they do their home charging. So at the end of the days, I mean, when the battery become obsolete, so what do they do with their batteries? I think it's very impossible for the riders to send it to the recycling plant. So troublesome, but it's because of swap energy that we are managing the whole ecosystem, that we can pull the battery and so centralize that we can repurpose it in the bigger scale. Because if anything is done in a very small scale, it's not feasible. So if it's in a much bigger scale, then we can do a repurpose. Maybe you can work with other companies for, let's say, telecom power purpose, and then for energy storage. And then at the end of when the battery really become obsolete, so we can sell these batteries, to recycling plant. A lot of people has been asking about this pollution actually. To us, because it's centralized, it's money. We can easily sell 100 tons of battery scrap to this recycling company to China, to any recycling plant in Indonesia. It's a lot of money. Korea as well. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And then I think we have only 2 questions left. So, Tin, what trends do you see emerging in green and impact, investing in SE Southeast Asia? And how can startups position themselves to attract such investment?
So I think to start, you'd see a lot of private wealth pouring, and public wealth as well, pouring into green funds, right? Whether it's public ESG funds or whether it's in PEVC, where they do climate, where they do sustainability, where they do impact. So hopefully I'm also a recipient of that capital for pouring forward. The challenge that all this capital has, there are not many startups in the space that they're looking at, or that at the state of maturity that the investors are looking for. So it's actually a pretty good time for startups to go after some of these investors. Now, I will caution branding yourself as a sustainability startup, right? Or branding yourself as a impact startup or an ESG company. And that's because there is a natural negative connotation with that. There's an assumption that you don't make as much money.
Yep.
So you kind of want to bring yourself forward as, hey, we're creating a lot of value. We're capturing a lot of that value as revenue, right? At the same time, yeah, we're doing some good, but we are a for-profit, insane upside company. And that puts you in a position to better negotiate and also attract non-impact or non-sustainability investors. Because then they would also want to invest in you. You get more, you open up your pool of investors beyond what the category calls for. Right? That's a lot better.
So how do startups brand themselves? What way? How do they?
So I can give you an example. Like startups that come out and say, oh, I'm an impact startup, right? Or I'm an ESG company. I write them off on the spot. Because chances are they don't make money. or they have so little value in the intrinsic value in the product or service that they're creating in their technology that they have to lead with, I'm an impact company, I'm an ESG company, right? I like companies that say, oh, I'm doing, it's very basic, it's the same old way of pitching, like, here's who I'm going after, here's the market, here's how much value I'm creating and capturing. That catches my attention. And then if you fulfill my requirement as an impact company, then I'd be very keen. So yeah, stay your lane.
Okay, good. And then beginning from, maybe let's start with the last questions. From maybe Irwan, best for Irwan, and then Carrie and Ting. Can each of you share a unique insight or lesson learned from your experience in promoting sustainability in your region or Southeast Asia that could benefit entrepreneurs or business leaders in the region, maybe including like policymakers too?
Okay. To move backwards, okay. Let's go back to the very early days of our company, Swap Energy. So at the very beginning of the days that we were very idealistic. So we wanted just to provide the energy to the electric motorcycles. So so Southeast Asia is not the same as I live for information. I live in China for 18 years. So there are a lot of electric bikes in China. So they have been doing battery swapping for a few years. So the battery swapping in China is more, I would say the population is already huge. So when we came to Indonesia, there was almost, I would say virtually none, almost zero, but very, very small numbers. So we came with the idea of providing the energy solutions for these electric motorcycles, but there were very few. So we had no choice. So we started, and eventually we started our own electric motorcycle company as well, right? So by doing that, okay, I mean, we are a startup company. Speed matters, right? We have no time to entertain, to wait for this population to grow. So at that point of time, we had no choice. We have to create our own electric motorcycle company to grow as fast as we can. And fortunately today, I think we are one of the fastest growing electric motorcycle company in Southeast Asia, I think. So there's the momentum was just right. And then the government was promoting a lot of ESG electric motorcycles.
Right timing. Yes.
Yeah, right timing. So I was lucky.
Okay,
thank you. And then let's move on, Carrie.
In our case, I think we have met with investors who actually would like to invest in alternative protein because they would like to have like sustainability, carbon kind of reduction kind of angle. So we have like a couple of cases. The investors say, "Hey, we like the team, we like the product, we like the model, and things like that." However, they do have a mandate that they need to check the box of carbon reduction. So then that's the problem, is that, okay, among the meat type, beef is the most biggest carbon footprint, but other than that, pork, chicken, fish are not. So that was a little bit earlier. I think we have actually grown from there, and including the science work, because I think when we talk about fish, I don't know whether you know that the ocean is actually the planet's biggest carbon sink. Carbon sink means a lot of the carbon emitted in the air, it actually gets captured in the ocean through the ocean kind of cycling kind of action on its own. It actually removes 25% of the carbon of the planet. And the heat that is generated on the land-based activity, 90% is actually moderated or even out by the ocean as a very giant planet kind of system. And 50% of the oxygen that we breathe in actually is made in the ocean and not just by the trees. So I think on the other hand, we see that the science and the study of very big ecosystem gathering some more momentum and data that we can actually now let people know that, okay, ocean is also something very important for the planetary health. And then we start connecting the dots. And honestly, I think we see that our investors, they are either carbon focused or they are ocean focused, very interestingly. But I hope that later on that will be a bit more general, like climate tech or like planet tech or something like that. Yeah.
Very good. I think you need to give more insights to the investors because not every investors know about these factors. So I think it'll be great if you can share more about this insight to investors in Korea or Japan or China. I think it'd be good. Okay, and last thing.
So I know we're out of time. I'll keep mine short.
Oh.
But the concept of sustainability or impact is still very poorly understood by investors in the region. So the focus still comes back to profitability, right? So as a startup, make sure you put forward your growth, your profitability. Even as a GP, when I'm doing my fundraising, I try not to mention impact so much because the focus is about financial returns. Financial returns first, and then the feel-good factor of impact comes later. For 95% of like family offices I've met with, and I've met with more than 200 over the past year.
Wow.
So if you're in Southeast Asia, focus on growth, focus on profit. Impact, sustainability can come along with the picture, but should not be a major part of your pitch.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you for joining, and let's wrap it up in here. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.